Hey everyone, it's Ellis here at the FlyQuest LoL YouTube channel, and we are going to go over patch 25.17, or Season 15, patch 17, and we're going to get right into it. So Season 3 is here, rank reset, it's a whole new battle pass, a bunch of stuff that you can unlock, very nice. Xin Zhao update is here, Doom bots are here. Now there's the minimap jungle timers, and this will end up helping people invade against junglers, and maybe even defend their jungler, but it's going to harm junglers' abilities to punish other junglers if this is something that they were really good at and maybe the other jungler wasn't doing something like this. It's going to be very minor, but still going to be something to take note of. Death recap and summoner spell tracking, just more stuff getting added to the game. This is ultimately a necessity in the event that you want the game to have more longevity because it needs more accessibility for people. And yeah, I mean, that's just sort of how it is. Now, the summoner spell tracking stuff, at the event of this happening, especially if they have cosmic insight or they have these types of things, that's a weird, you know, a weird situation here. Weird situation where obviously that was a little bit more difficult for people to time, and now it's going to be obviously easier. Now, for competitive changes and whatnot, there's not a whole lot going on in this patch, which is obviously sad, but then again, Worlds is right around the corner, so we're going to have to wait for the Worlds patch. Gwen's armor is down by 3. Attack speed growth is going to go up by 0.25, which doesn't really matter. Our needlework initial slow is going down dramatically, so this actually really affects her gank setup pretty much, in terms of like stripping away mobility from the opponents, especially at like max range. Subsequent slows are also going to get completely gutted as well. So she's not going to be able to max range our needlework you to set things up like in the past, and I mean that's sort of totally fine. I mean, Gwen is still going to be totally pickable. Irelia, WAP ratio increased, E cooldown decreased at higher ranks, and AP damage ratio is increased. W defiant dance minimum damage is going to be the same, except now has 10% more AP. Maximum damage, however, is going to go up by 30% maximum AP. E Flawless Duet is going to go down by 2 points at max rank. So in the event that, you know, you get E to max rank, then you get 2 more seconds, just base completely for free, which Irelia, depending on how you're building her, doesn't actually get ability haste, so this is quite nice. The damage is also getting 20% more AP. Now, you might think that this is like totally troll, or this is another boss video, or something like that, where AP Irelia, yada, yada, yada. But the reality is that these are just buffs for Baron, and it's buffs if, like, her teammate has Staff of Flowing Water or something like that, and it gives her more AP and she gets more use out of it. But other than that, not really a whole lot going on. Kassadin, Q damage increased, E damage is increased as well. Kassadin's been a bit stagnant and below, and we'd like for him to be resting win rate, and his pick rate is similarly declining. We're looking to enhance some of his late game damage output to encourage the high risk reward scaling playstyle that his players enjoy. Okay, so here's the thing. Kassadin has had a lot of indirect buffs to a lot of his items. Now, for Glass Cannon Kassadin, I guess that's not totally the case, but for the Roa, you know, tier variant, etc., that stacks a lot of mana and goes a lot of utility with a lot of ability haste, and all that cool jazz, these are definitely buffs. I mean, they're buffs to both. I mean, getting the 10% AP off the Null Sphere it's just quite nice. You know, especially in mid and late game. It helps with his assassinations and stuff. The 5% on the Force Pulse, you're probably only going to get 2 Force Pulses off in a team fight, so it's like 10% on a Z, and then obviously the Null Sphere you might get like 3 off in a team fight, so that's 30% AP, so you're probably getting 40% AP extra damage inside of a team fight. But obviously on the assassinations, I mean, these things are noticeable when you're going for that. Kayn, Q and W mana cost is decreased, so Q Reaping Slash going to be down by 10. W Blade's Reach is going to go down by a flat 20 at rank 1, which is crazy, because if you're playing lane Kayn, depending on the matchup, you don't actually put points into W until after 3 points Q, which you have for your wave clear. And in that case, I mean, you're just getting 20 free mana on all of your early laning Ws, and that's really crazy. What's going to end up happening is lane Kayn gets 2 free Qs and probably 2 free Ws during lane duration, which is an obscene amount of free mana that he's being allocated. Now, there's a lot of variants that end up just taking tier on Kayn in order to mitigate some of his mana problems. This might allow him to skip going tier entirely, just because of these changes. I mean, these are abilities that really do just get spammed a lot. Side of the jungle, it's not really going to matter because Kayn never really has mana problems inside of the jungle whatsoever, so it's not really doing a whole lot there. But yeah, for lane Kayn, I mean, definitely is nice. Kog'Maw, Q damage increased, W damage increased, R damage increased at higher ranks. Seasons ago, The Mouth of the Abyss was once a viable and common mid-lane poke champion who had late-game powerhouse identity. Not too far off from it these days, so we're looking to give him a bit of power to enable it again and get people to try it without making bot lane shift to AP for trivial wave clear. So, Caustic Spittle is going to have the same base, but it's going to get 10% more AP. W Bio Arcane Barrage is going to end up having plus 1.5% instead of... So it gets 0.5 per 100 AP. Let's say he has like a standard build that doesn't involve like death cap or something like that. It's going to mean that he's probably doing 1.5 to like 2% of the target's max health more damage with his W on hit. Our Living Artillery is minimum damage is now going to go up. Actually, now there's merit to putting points in it if you have any AP inside of your build because it goes up 10% AP. So it's going to be the same at rank 1 and then 10% later on. So that's actually really nice. The thing is, for Kog'Maw right now, I think that there's a build that involves Experimental Frenzy and activating it controlled because you get to determine how you use it. The extra points in his R for AD Kog'Maw doesn't really do anything. So for AD Kog'Maw, you just get 1 point in that, and you get all the other abilities to go up. So you have a much stronger mid-game, which becomes very frightening. And in that build, I mean, I think that you could just stack a lot of HP in that build, and I think that things can get scary. So like Experimental Frenzy with like Gwynsu's, and even the Gwynsu's is going to get buffed here because Gwynsu's has AP. So these things, even for the Gwynsu's variant of Kog'Maw, are still dealing, you know, minor amounts of damage, but still something, right? Okay, so Master Yi, base health decrease, Q damage is decreased. So one of the strongest champions, obviously, in the game, you know, and people can say what they will of his solo Q prowess and whatnot, but he's actually okay. So he's losing 14 base health, level 1, whatever. Alpha Strike on hit damage modifier is going to go down by 10%. So he did just get indirectly buffed with items and stuff like that, and he got a lot of buffs several patches in a row, and then he got several nerfs. So ultimately, it's kind of balancing it out. Nothing like this is going to kill Yi. This is literally less than half an auto. Early on, so it doesn't do anything. Misfortune, base AD is increased by a flat 2, doesn't matter, it's fake. And again, I talk about these types of changes all the time. Once a sample size of games is high enough, then eventually things like a First Blood ends up occurring because of a change like this, and you know, you just keep doing that over and over and over and over and over again, or you know, maybe a wave clear or something, or a CS ends up not being missed or something that gets you a better reset. With a high enough game volume, yes, it is a win rate mover, but in terms of actual competitive change, or does this affect you or something like that, no, it doesn't. And in the cases where it did, something else could have just been done different. Like, there's so much that goes in. Morgana, W cost decreased at higher ranks, W damage increased at lower ranks. This is good for Nickitch. W Tormented Shadow is going to... Now, this is her first max ability when she's in the jungle or when she's in mid lane. So getting even a little bit of extra mana off it when she already has infinite mana in mid lane is kind of funny. It allows her to be a little bit more liberal with her E and Q casts. Minimum damage per second is also going up, and she had the other buff that she had before. But typically what ends up happening is Morgana only leaves it at like 3 points and then starts maxing Q and stuff without actually maxing the full W. And yeah. Nilah, Q secondary monster damage is increased. Q Formless Blade secondary damage to monsters is going up by 90% total AD. So I don't know. Nilah will not become a viable jungler with this change, but the current restriction about how little splash damage she deals to jungle monsters just isn't needed. Removing this unneeded mod for now and eventually may dive into what it takes for Nilah to be functional here. Well, she's already one of the best champions in the entire game. People just don't pick her. They don't understand what she does. Most Nilah players don't understand what she does. Her teammates don't understand what she does. She basically has the same problem that Ivern has, which if anyone's been watching me playing in like the Master Career games recently, sometimes I land Q on someone and no one right clicks as they just continue to move forward towards the enemy target because they don't know that they can right click the binded target by Ivern's Q. Ivern's been out for almost 9 years, and there are players that just don't know what he does. I had a player tell me that they did not know that Daisy knocked up, and I had no idea of what that was. I had another player tell me that they did not know that the E slowed. So, you know, Nilah, same exact problem. Not played enough. People don't see her. When they do see her, they don't know what's going on. They don't bother to know what's going on. They're not searching it. And so one of the strongest champions in the game just ends up having this issue. Rumble, passive damage decreased, Q damage decreased at higher ranks. Passive Junkyard Titan is going to end up losing 1% of the target's max HP. And then the Q Flame Spitter, this is totally fake, by the way. It's losing 5 base per rank. Okay, now that is if it hits you with the full duration. Okay, this is a completely fake nerf on his Flame Spitter, meant to appease people that are complaining that Rumble is obviously very oppressive and very strong. But yeah, it's entirely fake. It doesn't do anything. Okay, so we move on to Senna. Attack speed growth is increased. Q heal is also increased. So her attack speed growth goes up by 0.6 per level. And then Q Piercing Darkness is not going to go. It's not going to go up by any ratios, so it's still going to have the 50%, 40% bonus AD. But now it's going to get 20 flat healing at rank 5s, which you can get obviously at level 9. So for the healer variant of Senna, if you actually go in Senna's patch notes history and you look at the changes that ended up happening, well, fasting Senna never should have went away in the first place. Everyone just seemingly forgot. They overreacted to some of the changes. With this happening, with some of the other indirect changes that have happened to items and whatnot, fasting Senna obviously becomes increasingly more viable again. So yeah, I mean, make of that what you will. And in terms of early laning, especially like the first early laning phases, this doesn't really do anything. Maybe the rank 3 does, especially in a lane swap scenario. You end up casting Q, maybe on an ally like 4 or 5 times. You give them an auto attack worth of HP, but yeah. Sett E monster damage increase. Sett jungle is a lot closer to viable than people realize, but he still needs to be a bit of a push to reach true viability. Have fun. This champion is not viable in the jungle, but people will play him the same way that people play Volibear, and will say that Volibear is viable in the jungle. The champions might be able to be picked in the jungle. In terms of viability at like the highest levels or something like that, these champions are detriments to the team. Even if they feel fun or they feel oppressive inside of solo queue or whatnot. Now, it's based on level, which means that this is doing very negligible amounts of damage. Also, this is E is not Haymaker, it's Facebreaker. Haymaker is his W, but anyways. Singe Q damage per application is decreased. They saw Bwipo being a little bit too wide in LTA, decided to nerf it. And this is obviously making him go in line for the extra tick rate that he ended up getting. So ultimately, Singe is he's fine. Teemo, mushrooms, eggs, and other objects are now more visible. Arnox is trapped. The opacity is increased, but realistically, it doesn't change anything. Vayne Q monster damage is increased. Silver bullets, 6 to 10% max HP capped at 200. So 6% of certain jungle camps would be... yeah, way less actually than some of these, depending on the monsters that she's actually hitting. Does that mean that Jungle Vayne is viable? Absolutely not. You know, if you want to play a Jungle Vayne, start Silver Bullets, then Max Tumble, have fun. So also Silver Bullets, I don't think is Q. So there's a lot of typos on this patch. Yunara fixed a lot of bugs. Okay, items. Axiom Arc is going down by 250. It's a very fake item. This is not an item that you should ever be building. This ends up falling into the same exact thing that like the old AP Twitch arguments used to have with like certain things, or like basically if your ultimate's cooldown is 90 seconds. In a competitive game or even a solo queue game, what you'll tend to notice is that your ultimate is up again by the time you end up resetting and taking your next fight, whether it's because you farmed a wave or you farmed camps or you got ready. And this is because no ultimate in the game almost is ever actively looked for to be instantaneously used on the opponent. No ultimate is like that. Pretty much anymore, especially with the evolution of the game, which means that there's often downtime on when an ultimate is going to get cast. And so when that's the case, the, you know, ability haste or the cooldown reduction, etc., it ends up, you know, being somewhat fake. And unless you see like massive changes, like 30 seconds off rank 1, you know, something like that. Like I think a really good example of a champion where, you know, if you've been seeing Inspired play him in solo queue, or me, or some other people, like last 2 weeks ago actually, when the patch first hit, Mordekaiser in the jungle, putting points in his R just feels really bad. You might sometimes put 2 points in his R, but the thing is that his ultimate, yes, it is a, you know, it's one of the key aspects of his kit, but the reality is that when you death realm someone and you do have even a little bit of ability haste, it's up again by the time you would likely often cast it. But yes, there are times where you do put 1 point more in at level 11, but not again at 16, and you just continue to max, you know, the other stuff. Profane Hydra. Now, this one's actually really big. So the attack damage going down by 5, but the cost going down by 350, which is crazy. Profane Hydra is a weak assassin item right now, and it falls to the typical AD assassin. So this is really good for certain champions, especially inside of the jungle and even inside of the lane. Because this is a first item for some of them. And so when you're talking about first items, you're talking about a stage of the game where cannons aren't spawning every other wave or every wave. Minions haven't reached maximum movement speed yet. And in addition to, so cannons aren't spawning every other wave, minions haven't reached maximum movement speed yet, and cannons also haven't reached maximum gold value, which they do at 17 minutes, 15 seconds. Typically, your first item is completed anywhere between 8 and 12 minutes, depending on your champion and what your starting items were and what's going on. So with that being said, when you're talking about, gold values like 350, you're actually talking about more than 2 waves, because a cannon, even that early on, plus a non-cannon wave, is still only giving you 270. Now, yes, you are getting the in-game timer, which is going to generate passive gold. So in some cases, it's going to be 2 waves, but if it wasn't a cannon that you needed it on, you're going to end up having to wait 3 waves. So this ultimately saves you somewhere between 90 to 110 seconds of in-game time as a first item, which that's quite nice. Arena Season 3 update, very nice, and that is it? Wait, that doesn't make sense. Oh, sorry, Horizon Focus, skipped over this. So on Twitter, you guys might have seen the discourse that ended up spawning from my tweet and my engagement with some players. Some of them are Tier 2 pros, others were notable streamers, which I ended up actually agreeing that I was wrong on my initial belief that the item just couldn't be built on anyone. I realized that on Vel'Koz, it's extremely unique to Vel'Koz, because Vel'Koz, very interesting champion, where his W and his E is situational. And they're oftentimes reactive to something happening, and so Vel'Koz fishes with Q a lot. And so for Vel'Koz to be fishing with Q, getting 10 extra AP for free, 50 gold less for free, all of that just feels really nice. This is definitely one of Vel'Koz's items. And I remember there was another champion that I ended up saying that I thought could build this item. And it wasn't Zoe. I can't remember who else I ended up saying. And then also, I think Fogged pointed out that if AP Tryndamere ever comes back, this is obviously another item for AP Tryndamere, because he doesn't care about any of the actual AP items. And the problem with this item is that the vision that it ends up granting. Now, some people might say, oh, this is a Xerath item or something like that. Well, it's really not. Because if Xerath lands his ability on you, it means that he knows where you are, which means he can hit you. And he's going to hit you. And when Xerath does hit you, it's a little bit different than Vel'Koz, because typically Xerath wants to combo. Whereas Vel'Koz is not like that, because Vel'Koz has more range with his Q, and it's more obnoxious, and it's more difficult to play against, because the Vel'Koz player is the one that is more in control of it than you are, whereas against Xerath, you're a little bit more in control. Some people pointed out, oh, well, wouldn't Zoe want something like this? And well, it's no. Zoe would not necessarily want something like this. People pointing out, oh, that's, it's so much AP for that much gold. And it's well, 2 needlessly large rods actually gives you more AP, and it's building towards Death Cap. And then when you finish Death Cap and you have another item, Death Cap essentially gives you the AP that this item gives for free. Then people are saying, well, isn't the vision really useful? And it's that's a really difficult intangible to start discussing, because when you're talking about standoffs, you're talking about wards, you're talking about you already hit the target in the first place, which, ends up meaning that you know where they are, and all these other types of things. Typically, you're going to want other items which are giving you haste. Now, this item gives you 25 haste. If you have Seraphs or something like that, Seraphs is going to be very funny. Where Seraphs is giving you the same exact haste. It's giving you near similar AP, except it's giving you a lot of other value. If you have, Crypt Bloom or something like that, I ended up showing on Twitter that some of the damage difference between having the magic penetration versus having the excess AP, Crypt Bloom, even against squishies, would end up still being, it's so similar that against anything at all that's not non-squishy, Crypt Bloom just dramatically outperforms. And so then you have to start making a claim about the value of the vision. Now, the other thing that I think now I'm remembering that it was Lux, potentially, because Lux typically will just fish for ease, and she'll use her Q reactionary, and then her W with the shield, and then obviously the R Maybe Lux is unique in that even with Crit Bloom, typically she's still going to need the same number of Rotatos to kill you, whereas on the Squishy, where she wouldn't need the Rotatos to kill you, it's going to be so similar. So I think Lux and Vel'Koz were the two champions that I ended up agreeing, like, okay, actually, wait, maybe this would end up being correct. But then on some other champions that people were saying, like Hwei or Xerath or, you know, these types of things, I can't agree that that is the case. Yeah, there's that. Now, for something maybe because we saw Kog'Maw end up getting buffed, Kog'Maw is so unique in that his range on his R, let's just pull this up really quickly, because Kog'Maw got buffed, right? AP Cog ended up getting buffed. Let's take a look at the range on Kog'Maw's R, okay? So when he has max range, he has 1800, and it has an effect range for 240. So this is a super utility spot where even at rank 2, 1550, this is super utility, and that yes, when Cog does hit you, yeah, he hits you, but AP Kog'Maw is typically a lot more about control than anything else. And obviously with the AP ratio buffs and stuff, maybe this is an item for him, which, you know, I guess you could say is totally fine. Now, Kog'Maw has had some other problems with his items, right? Like, Leandris doesn't give haste anymore, so, you know, does he have to build Blackfire Torch? And so if he's building Blackfire Torch, I mean, he's already getting a lot of ability haste, but obviously ability haste doesn't... Ability haste is a little bit weird on Kog'Maw because his R is already instant. And he just has to control his mana. And the other thing is that Cog is he uses a lot of mana. So even with like Presence of Mind or Blackfire Torch and even Tear and stuff like that, things get a little bit weird, but that's pretty much it. And then we move on to the skins, and that is going to be it for everything. So the skin line's absolutely crazy. This Tryndamere skin, I mean, this literally looks like Phyrexia. If anyone's ever seen Magic the Gathering, this literally looks like Phyrexian skins. The cinematic is literally Phyrexian. There's no if, and, ors, or buts about it. So we'll just... Yeah, it's Phyrexia. That is what the skin line is. That is it is Phyrexia. It's the oil. So that's it. So we got the Phyrexian skin line, which is obviously really cool. This skin's very cool as well. But yeah, I mean, that is pretty much it. Elderwood Alistar does look very nice. And if you guys are following the lore, then obviously make sure to watch Necrit and stuff, because he gives a really good detail on everything. Even the chromas, I think, on this look really cool. He actually looks like a ghoul. I'm really sad that I just blew a lot of RP, actually, lately, because now I'm not going to be able to buy this, but that is totally fine. So that is it, guys, for the patch. And don't forget to like and subscribe here at the FlyQuest YouTube channel. And we'll see you, obviously, for playoffs, LTA, FlyQuest versus Shopify Rebellion this upcoming week, as we are trying to make the run for Worlds. I just realized that my mic was muted the entire time, so that's a blooper.